Well, it's really nice to be able to introduce this tool to you. For some of you, this may be a slight repeat of what you heard at the Summer Institute, but if that's the case, I hope that maybe you'd add some of the observations that were brought up during the Summer Institute. But my name's Destiny Simpson. I have been an online teacher of adult basic ed learners and also for practitioners for about 15 years now. I currently work at TIU 11 and develop professional development for adult basic ed practitioners in Pennsylvania. And I'll allow Amy to introduce herself, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Poland. I'm the Professional Development Coordinator for the Adult Education team at the Maine Department of Education, and have worked with adults in lots of different capacities for about 10 years now. And I'm happy to join you today, Destiny.
Great, thanks. Amy was one of the co-developers of this tool, so I'm really thrilled that she's able to join us. So this is going to be an interactive session, and so what I'm going to ask you to do is to use the annotate tools. So if you haven't used these before, you should see a little green bar at the top of the screen that says you are viewing Destiny Simpson's screen. And if you drop down, your drop down may look slightly different, but you should see something that's called annotate. I'm going to ask you to use the stamp tool in order to participate in the next couple of slides. If for some reason you don't see that, feel free to just participate via chat and share your message or just follow along as we're watching. But I thought it might be helpful for us to see what your role is at your program. So most of us wear many different hats when you're working in adult basic ed, but if you could use the stamp tool or a draw tool to indicate what roles you fill, just to give us a sense of who is with us today. Good. So it seems like we have a lot of administrators, so this tool will definitely be of use to you. For those of you that are doing professional development, it could also be a resource as you're working with teachers and administrators to help them describe what online learning might look like. And for those of you that are teachers, there's definitely something you can also gain from using this remote instruction observation tool as well. Good. Well, thank you all for taking the time to do that. I'm going to clear your drawings here if you just give me a second, and I'll go to the next screen here. So the next question we have for you is, does your program use a specific classroom observation form or forms? Okay. So right now, it looks like it's leaning towards more of our participants currently don't have a specific observation form that you're required to use. So this tool will definitely be helpful in this for your programs. For those of you that do have a specific observation form, you may find that you'll be able to incorporate elements from this tool into your current observation form. Thanks again for taking the time to do that. Now, the next question that I have for you, and we'll see how this goes doing this on screen. If you could once again use the annotate tools and type, for those of you that are using an observation form, do you want to type on screen what observation forms you're currently using? Just to give us an idea so we all kind of see where we're coming from. And if that's not working very well for you to type on screen, feel free to just type in the chat. Okay, so one that's similar to the teach tool. So I'm going to, it looks like there weren't a ton of people that were actually using a certain observation form. So I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So for those of you that have some sort of observation tool, how well do those forms meet the needs of observing a remote class instruction? And if you can just once again use the stamp tool to kind of draw to indicate how well the current observation forms you might be using meet the needs of observing remote instruction. Okay. Thank you. So what it looks like is for those that were able to respond, that's kind of meets the need or maybe really isn't meeting the need at all, which is why the Ed Tech Center and the Ideal Consortium decided to develop a remote classroom observation tool. And so at this point, I'm going to clear all the drawings here. If you just give me a second, I'm sorry, I keep on hitting the wrong button. Let me clear all the drawings and go on to the next slide. So what you just indicated on the last slide is one of the main reasons why we decided to develop another observation tool, because as you know, there's lots of different observation tools that are out there. However, a lot of them didn't really address the specifics of remote live instruction. And also because of the pandemic, remote instruction was very new for so many teachers, especially in adult basic ed. And so we felt like it was important to kind of have a tool that kind of explained, here are things that are in components of good online instruction. And this is what you can look for when you do that. And so at this point, I want to give special thanks to Amy, who's with us today, and also to Kayla Sikora, who works with Amy in Maine. Big shout out to both of them. They were co-developers of this tool and really provided a lot of input and from their experiences and experiences from practitioners in the field in order to develop a tool that we hope will be really useful for you. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Amy, who's going to talk a little bit about the tool itself.
Thanks, Destiny. So the remote instruction observation tool has three parts: the guide, the pre and post observation questions, and then the observation tool itself. And Destiny's actually going to show us what it all looks like in a little bit. The guide is really sort of the overview. It gives you the purpose of the tool, the resources that we used in the development of the tool, and then it also encourages users to adapt the tool for their context so that you can, if it doesn't fit exactly what you're using, that you can make sure that it does fit with how you would like to use it. The pre and post observation questions are really to encourage reflection by teachers, but also to encourage conversation. And then the observation tool itself outlines criteria in 4 domains for effective remote instruction. Next slide. So as we worked with Destiny on this, it was really important to us to develop a tool that would be educative, not evaluative for our teachers. We're a local control state, so we don't do teacher evaluation from the state level, but we wanted to have something that teachers could use to reflect on their teaching. We wanted them to be able to use something that they could determine where they needed to strengthen their practice. In Maine, our programs are familiar with the Standards in Action observation tool for the college and career readiness standards. So we really wanted to have something that was similar to what they already were familiar with. We thought that having a similar process and a similar format would promote buy-in from the field. I also have had many conversations with teachers over the last 18 months in office hours who are really struggling with whether they were doing remote instruction right. And so for me, I really wanted something that was specific, that was used really action-oriented language, and would demonstrate effective remote instructional practices. And then finally, in Maine, we have lots of different programs doing lots of different things, from managed enrollment to open enrollment to learning labs to one-on-one tutoring. And we really needed to have a tool that would fit or be able to be adjusted for the individual program's needs and context. So again, and even though it's not intended to be an evaluative tool, we believe that encouraging these 3 stages of the process will really strengthen the outcomes for the teacher and for the program. So pre-observation is really the conversation. It's a chance for the observer to discuss the process with the teacher and to learn more about the lesson content and the context, including any resources that might be helpful for the observer to know about, or information about learners that might be important to understand before the observation. Then the observation can be observing a live class or viewing a recording of the class. But either way, the observer should try to be there for the whole thing and be able to record so that they can record evidence of the remote teaching practices that they've observed. And then the follow-up afterwards, having a conversation. Again, the observer should have a conversation with the teacher to debrief using the reflective questions as a guide. You might also talk about next steps, such as professional development or any support that the teacher might need. And in Maine, we do this with the standards in action tool. You might also think about a program gathering lots of data from different observations to think about how they could support program improvement or guide professional development from the program level. And so now Destiny is going to take us through the tool in more detail.
So Amy wrote a blog article that tells us a little bit about how the resources were developed. And I'm going to put that link in the chat because it has links to all the different formats of this observation tool. From her blog article, you'll be able to download the Word version, which allows you to fully edit and edit the observation tool and the reflection questions as you'd like and see fit. There's a fillable PDF, which is an easy way to kind of fill it out if you're doing it electronically. And then we also have just the observation tool as a fillable PDF. So you'll be able to download the links to all of these documents from the blog article in the link that I just shared via the chat. So the observation tool has 4 different domains. And if you're familiar with the links, adult teacher competencies, these are going to seem very familiar to you, at least 3 of them will. Lesson planning and delivery, assessing understanding and adjusting instruction accordingly, communication, and the use of technology to support learners. So these 3 are very similar to what you'll see in the links, adult teacher competencies, if those happen to be something that your program's using. The tool that we developed, we made it with a Creative Commons license because, as Amy mentioned, we wanted to make sure that this was something that could be used in a way that best meets the needs of you, your program, and your teachers. And so it is created with a license that allows you to edit it as you see fit, as long as you properly attribute it, you don't use it for commercial gain, and you share any subsequent work under the same license. And so the Word document that you're going to have access to from the blog article, you can change and adapt it as what will best meet the needs of your program. So I'm going to just take show you a quick glance at the pre-observation questions. You'll notice that some of these questions might be similar to something that you're doing if you were doing an in-person observation class. You know, what are your goals for this lesson? What are the class norms? What might be important for me to know? But there's also some additional things that you don't have to do if you're typically just walking inside a classroom and observing. So for example, you know, what's the link to join? What materials like a syllabus or LMS or Google Docs do I need to have links to in order to fully participate and see the materials from a learner perspective? The tool itself, I'm going to send to you now in a link that's going to allow you to download it as a Word document. And I'm going to give you maybe, well, since we're a little short on time, maybe we'll do this in the breakout rooms, but I'll walk you through the way that the tool is structured here. So each domain basically has items that we're asking the observer to look for. You can indicate whether it's present, not present, or not applicable. This last column allows you to write evidence, but some other things that when presenting and sharing this with other practitioners that might be using this, that they have found really helpful were these look fors. You'll notice there's a column for teacher look fors and there's a teacher for learner look fors. These allow you, if you want to just easily check off things that you notice, but they also provide an opportunity to kind of describe or demonstrate what good teaching online might look like. So for example, for somebody that is providing tech support, the teacher is able to notice when learners might be struggling with the technology. And so it allows teachers that are new to online learning or teaching or still building their skills to kind of get a sense of what they're trying to work towards in order to provide high quality online instruction. The other thing I want to know, whenever we shared this with teachers in Pennsylvania and administrators in Pennsylvania, one of the things that they said is like, you know, this tool is it has 4 pages. I don't think I'm going to be able to check like all these look fors and, fill out this whole thing at once. There's a couple of solutions that people have come up with as they've tried to use this. One was to really only focus on, whether it's present or not present, and getting familiar with the teacher look fors or learner look fors, but not trying to check those off while you're doing the observation. Some people have decided to use the recording in order to go back and kind of look for more specific evidence in order to support whether things are present. And finally, some other programs have talked about the idea of looking at either just one domain, for example, maybe the use of technology to support learners and really focusing just on that in the observation, or even just specific items from the tool in order to, when they're doing their observation and in order to help really focus on what they're looking for. So the tool is really designed to be flexible and able to be used in a lot of different ways. There's the post-observation questions, which, as Amy mentioned, we designed these to be reflective, to think about, what went really well, what might you do differently, what support do you need? And, we'd really love to hear how you're using this tool. It just got shared out to the Ideal Consortium in early summer. And so we'd love to hear as people start using this tool, how you're using it, how you're adapting it to meet the needs.